Listen to the full story now. A woman I had never seen before appeared at my wedding wearing a bridesmaid dress. My fiancé said she was his cousin, but when she handed me a note during the ceremony and I read it, I froze. If these stories mean something to you, please subscribe. Your subscription means more to me than you can imagine. It is motivation. It is the reason I continue telling these stories. And write in the comments where you are watching from. Now let's begin. Karolina Stepanian was 28 years old. She had her mother's dark hair and her father's confident gaze. In just a few hours, she was supposed to become Karolina Mirzayan. That thought both excited and frightened her. Behind her, her best friend Evelina Vardanian struggled with the endless buttons on her wedding dress. Evelina was 29. She was a sharp-tongued lawyer specializing in family law at a firm on Lennon Avenue. She had handled dozens of divorces, seen the worst marriage could become, and still somehow believed in love. Today she was determined to get Karolina to the altar without a single hair out of place. "Karolina, if you don't stop shaking, I'll prick you with a pin," Evelina warned. Her words were barely understandable because of the pins in her mouth. "Sorry," Karolina's voice was barely audible. "I'm just nervous." "Nervous is normal." Evelina's dark eyes met hers in the mirror. "Regret is not." "You didn't change your mind, did you?" "Never." The word came out faster than Karolina expected. "I love him, Evelina. I've never been so sure of anything." It was true. Nurlan Mirzayan had entered her life 18 months ago at a business conference at the Ekaterinburg Expo Center. Handsome, successful, attentive. He remembered anniversaries, left notes on her pillow, and once spent an entire day learning her mother's pelmeni recipe in her tiny kitchen. Evelina smiled and kissed her cheek. "Then let's get you married." The next hour passed like a blur. Karolina's aunt, Zarifa Sarkisian, fluttered around like a nervous sparrow. At 52, Zarifa had become the closest person to her mother after Karolina's own mother, Elena Stepanian, died of cancer 5 years ago at the Sverdlovsk Regional Oncology Center. Since then, Zarifa had taken on the role without hesitation, helping with celebrations, giving advice, crying at every important event, as if Karolina were her own daughter. Today she was crying even before her makeup was finished. "Beautiful," Zarifa whispered, dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief. "Absolutely beautiful. Your mother would be so proud of you." Karolina's throat tightened. "Do you really think so?" "I know it." Zarifa squeezed her shoulders. "Elena always said you would find someone special, someone who deserves you." In the corner of the living room, Karolina's cousin Asia Abramyan quietly sipped champagne when she thought no one was looking. Asia was 22, a third-year law student at the Ural State Law University, with her grandmother's sharp tongue and her mother's mischievous smile. Every time she reached for the bottle, Zarifa slapped her hand. "Stop it, girl." "Not during the ceremony." "One small sip won't hurt," Asia protested. "It will when you start stumbling over your vows." "I'm not the one getting married." All the while, Karolina kept checking her phone, waiting for her morning message from Nurlan. He always sent one. Every day for 18 months without exception. Sometimes it was sweet, sometimes silly, sometimes just a heart emoji, but it was always there. At 9:47, her phone vibrated. "I can't wait to see you. I love you, my queen." Karolina smiled and put the phone away. My queen. That's what he always called her. Everything was perfect. The Cathedral of St. John the Baptist stood on the eastern bank of the Iset River. Its white stone walls gleamed, and its golden domes caught the morning light. Built in the mid-10th century, it was one of the oldest churches in Ekaterinburg. Today its bells rang joyfully as the wedding convoy approached. Black cars wound through the city, past the Eternal Flame on 1905 Square, past the marriage palaces on Lennon Avenue, past Saturday shoppers and curious passers-by. An old woman crossed herself and whispered a prayer for the bride. Karolina sat in the back seat of a white limousine. Next to her was her father. Armen Sarkisian was 61 years old. He was a retired engineer with graying hair and hands that had built everything from bookshelves to birdhouses. He raised Carolina alone after Elena's death. He learned how to cook, braid hair, and talk about things fathers are not usually expected to understand. Today he was wearing his best suit, the same one he had worn at Elena's funeral, now altered to fit his thinner frame. "Your mother used to say weddings are for the living," he said softly. "That you carry everyone who came before you into the future." Carolina squeezed his hand. "Is she here, Dad?" "I know," he nodded, not trusting his voice. The limousine pulled into the cathedral courtyard, gravel crunching beneath the tires. Guests lined the walkway, university friends from Ural Federal University, colleagues from the IT company where Carolina worked as a project manager, relatives who had traveled from Perm, Chelyabinsk, even Sochi, and Novosibirsk. Evelina appeared at the car, fixing Carolina's train. "Ready." Carolina took a deep breath. "Ready." She stepped out, and the world seemed to stop. The cathedral towered before her, majestic and ancient. Its white stone walls glowed in the autumn light. Golden domes burned against the blue sky, and at the altar, visible through the open doors, stood Nerlin. He was stunning in his black suit, perfectly tailored, not a single wrinkle out of place. His dark hair was neatly styled. His smile was wide and sincere, the smile of a man who could not believe his luck. Next to him stood his best man, his cousin Ruslambek Mirzayan, a large man with a kind face and an easy laugh. Armin offered her his arm. "Let's go, my daughter." Carolina took it. "Let's go, Dad." They walked slowly down the aisle between rows of smiling faces. The organ played. Candles flickered. The air was filled with the thick, sweet scent of incense. Carolina's eyes stayed locked on Nerlin, on the man she loved, on the future she had dreamed of since childhood. This was it. The moment. Father Alexei stood at the altar in shining vestments. His voice was deep and solemn. He was young for such an old cathedral, around 40, with kind eyes and a beard just beginning to gray. He had married dozens of couples here, performed funerals, baptized infants. Today his voice carried the weight of tradition. "Dearly beloved in the Lord," he began, "we are gathered here today before God and this assembly to join together this man and this woman in holy matrimony." The familiar words washed over Carolina. She could barely hear them. All she saw was Nerlin. All she felt was his hand in hers, warm and steady. "Marriage," Father Alexei continued, "is a sacred union, a bond of trust and honesty, a promise made before God and witnessed by those who love you." Carolina nodded slightly, agreeing with every word. Then her gaze drifted past Nerlin, past Ruslambek, past the altar itself, and she saw her. A woman stood at the back of the cathedral on the bride's side, half hidden behind one of the massive stone columns. At first glance, she looked like any other guest. Dark hair fell over her shoulders. A simple but elegant dress. Hands folded in front of her. But something about her made Carolina look again. The dress was dusty pink, the exact shade of the bridesmaids' dresses. The woman's face was beautiful but exhausted. Dark circles under her eyes, a jawline marked by sleepless nights and hard decisions. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't crying. She was just watching, waiting, her gaze locked on the altar with such intensity that Carolina's stomach tightened. "Who is she?" Carolina glanced at Nerlin. He was still smiling, still speaking vows, still the perfect groom. "Stop," she told herself. "You're being paranoid." Father Alexei continued. "If anyone present knows of any lawful impediment why these two should not be joined in holy matrimony, speak now or forever hold your peace." The words hung in the air. The congregation held its breath. It was tradition, nothing more. A formality no one ever answered. Carolina waited for it to pass. It passed. Nerlin squeezed her hand. She squeezed back. Then she felt a light touch on her arm. She looked down. Evelina stood beside her, pale, eyes wide. In Carolina's hand appeared a folded piece of paper. Evelina nodded slightly toward the woman in pink. Carolina unfolded the note with trembling fingers and read. He told me the same thing 2 years ago. We have a daughter. Her name is Elvina. She is 1 year old. Meet me at the fountain in the courtyard in 5 minutes, or I will come to the altar myself. The world stopped. Carolina read the words again and again. Nerlin was still speaking. His voice sounded distant, muffled, as if she were underwater. To love and to cherish, until death do us part. Carolina looked at the woman in pink. Their eyes met. The woman gave one small nod, just once, then turned and slipped out through a side door, disappearing into the autumn light. Carolina. Nerlin's voice broke through the haze. Are you okay? You're pale. She looked at him, the man she loved, trusted, believed in, the man who held her, whispered promises, and made her believe in happy endings. I need a minute, she whispered. What? A minute? Her voice rose. Several guests turned. I need air. Carolina, we're in the middle. I know where we are. She pulled her hand away from his. Wait here. She walked back down the aisle. Guests parted for her like water. Whispers followed. Shocked faces turned. Zarifa called her name. Armin half rose from his seat. Asia dropped her champagne glass. Carolina didn't stop. She pushed through the heavy wooden doors and stepped into the courtyard. The woman in pink was waiting by the fountain, just as she had promised. Up close, Carolina saw everything she had missed from afar, dark circles under her eyes, faint lines of tension around her mouth, the way her hands gripped the stone edge of the fountain as if without it she might collapse. She was young, maybe 25, but looked older. Worn down by something Carolina could not yet name. You came, the woman said. Her voice was soft, with a slight accent Carolina could not place, southern, maybe Krasnodar or Stavropol. Who are you? Carolina demanded. My name is Liana. Liana Mirzayan. The name hit Carolina like a physical. Mirzayan. His surname. Are you married to him? It was not a question. I was. Liana reached into her small clutch bag and pulled out a folded document. A marriage certificate. Official. Stamped. Legal. Carolina immediately recognized Nerlin's signature. She had seen it on hundreds of documents, cards, little notes he left on her pillow. The date was 3 years ago. The place, Civil Registry Office No. 1 on Lenin Avenue, the main civil registry office in Ekaterinburg, where thousands of couples married every year. We had a civil wedding, Liana said quietly. It was small, just family. His parents didn't approve. They wanted someone from a good family, with connections. But we did it anyway. I thought love would be enough. Carolina couldn't breathe. And the child? Liana took out her phone and showed her a photo. A little girl, about 1 year old, with dark curls and Nerlin's eyes. She sat on a blanket at a typical Ekaterinburg playground, orange and blue equipment, birch trees in the background, gray apartment blocks in the distance. Elvina, Liana whispered. She'll turn 2 in December. Sometimes she asks about her father. I don't know what to tell her. Carolina sank onto the edge of the fountain. Her wedding dress spilled around her onto the cold stone, the white fabric absorbing the chill of early winter. Everything she had believed for the past 18 months was collapsing, and she could not find the strength to hold it together. Why are you telling me this now? She asked. Why not earlier? Why not last week, last month, when I could have? I tried, Liana's voice trembled. I tried so many times. She sat down beside Carolina and began to tell her everything. Liana had met Nerlin 4 years ago at a New Year's party in Tuzgorodok. She was 21, fresh out of college, working as a receptionist at a small hotel near the train station. He was 26. Handsome, confident, already building the career that would eventually lead him to business conferences, IT companies, and Carolina's life. They moved in together after 6 months into a small one-room apartment on the outskirts of the city. They married after 8 months in a simple ceremony at the registry office, with only a few witnesses. And for the first year, everything was perfect. Then she got pregnant. The moment I told him, something changed, Liana said. He became distant, cold. Started coming home late, working weekends. Always had excuses. When Elvina was born, he barely looked at her. Held her once, maybe twice. Said he was tired, stressed, needed space. Carolina listened, her hands shaking. 3 months later, he said he wanted a divorce, Liana continued. Said he had made a mistake, wasn't ready to be a father, that I deserved better. He packed a bag while I was holding the baby and left. I never saw him again. He just disappeared. Stopped answering calls. Stopped paying bills. I hired a lawyer, a woman named Evelina Vardanian. Carolina's eyes widened. Evelina, my Evelina? Your bridesmaid? Yes, Liana nodded. I found her through legal aid. She took my case pro bono. Tried to get child support, tried to find him. But by the time we tracked him down, he had already moved again. Changed jobs. Changed apartments. Changed numbers. He disappeared. And I was left alone with a child, no money, and an eviction notice. Carolina suddenly remembered something, late-night conversations with Evelina months ago, after too much wine, about a difficult case. A woman abandoned by her husband. A child without a father. Evelina had never named her. It was you, Carolina whispered. She was talking about you. Liana nodded. She helped me the whole time, for free. She believed me when no one else did. How did you find him now? Social media, Liana said. A friend sent me a photo of his engagement. I recognized the church, the Cathedral of St. John the Baptist. My grandmother was baptized there during Soviet times, when churches were still barely functioning. I knew if I came today, I would find him. And you just came. I sent letters, 3 to your address, to his office at the IT company, to his mother's apartment. I don't know if he ever saw them. I even called your work last month. A woman answered, said you were in a meeting. You never called back. Carolina remembered that day. Her assistant had mentioned a strange call from someone claiming to know Nerlin. She had dismissed it. A prank. Someone trying to ruin the wedding. I thought you were crazy, Carolina whispered. I thought someone was trying to destroy my wedding. I was trying to save you. Silence fell between them. The fountain murmured softly. Inside the cathedral, the organ had stopped. Guests were probably wondering what was happening, why the bride had left the altar. He has another woman, Liana said quietly. Did you know? Carolina stared at her. What? A woman named Amina. I found messages on his old phone before he left. He had been seeing her for years. Before me, during our marriage, and probably during your relationship too. I don't know if she knows about us. Amina. The name meant nothing to Carolina. She had never heard Nerlin mention it. Who is she? His assistant. The woman he works with, travels with, spends weekends with. Liana pulled out a folder from her bag. Inside were photos. Nerlin with a beautiful young woman in a restaurant, in a hotel lobby, walking hand in hand through the Ekaterinburg Zoo. She was around 30. Dark-haired, elegant, always perfectly dressed. I don't know her, Liana said. But I know she exists. And I know he lied to her too. Carolina flipped through the photos. Her hands were steady now. Something inside her had changed. Shock hardened into something colder, sharper. Anger, maybe. Or simply clarity. The kind that comes when the last illusion finally breaks. You have a daughter, Carolina said quietly. A wife. A fiancé. And he was going to marry me. Yes. He was going to stand before God and everyone we know and make promises he never intended to keep. Yes. Carolina closed the folder. I believe you. Liana's eyes filled with tears. Really? Really? And I will help you. They returned to the cathedral together. The guests gasped when they saw them, the bride returning with a strange woman in pink. Both walking side by side like old friends. Nerlin froze at the altar. His face shifted from surprise to confusion to something that looked dangerously close to fear. Carolina, he stepped forward, arms extended. Who is this? What is happening? Carolina stopped at the base of the altar steps. Liana stopped beside her. This, Carolina said loudly enough for everyone to hear, is Liana Mirzayan, your wife. This time, the gasps were deafening. Nerlin's face went pale. That's a lie. I've never seen her in my life. Don't. Carolina's voice cut through him like a blade. Don't you dare. She lifted the marriage certificate, then the photos of Elvina, then the images of Nerlin with Amina. She handed them to Father Alexei, who examined them with a dark expression. They appear authentic, he said quietly. They are authentic, Liana said firmly. Her voice was stronger now, steadier than before. We were married at Civil Registry Office No. 1 on Lenin Avenue 3 years ago. We have a daughter, Elvina, who will turn 2 in December. He abandoned us when she was 3 months old. I have court documents. Witness statements. A lawyer who has been helping me for 2 years. The cathedral fell into complete silence. 200 people sat frozen, watching the drama unfold. Nerlin tried again. Carolina, please. Let me explain. I can explain everything. She's lying. She's insane. She's not lying. A new voice came from the crowd. Everyone turned. Near the back rows, a woman slowly stood up. Her face was pale, her eyes locked on Nerlin with pure devastation. She was beautiful, dark-haired, polished. The woman from the photos. Amina Mirzayan, his assistant. The other woman. I told me he loved me, Amina said quietly. Her voice trembled, but she forced herself to continue. He said we would be together as soon as he finished things with you. She looked at Carolina, then at Liana. I didn't know about either of you. I swear I didn't know. He proposed to me last month. He showed me a ring. He said we would go to the registry office in spring. Another wave of gasps swept through the cathedral. Nerlin opened his mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. Nothing came out. The silence stretched, thick, unbearable. Then Armin Sarkisian stood up. Carolina's father. 61 years old. Retired engineer. A man who had avoided confrontation all his life. He walked to where Nerlin stood and looked him in the eyes. You have 5 seconds to leave this church before I personally throw you out. Nerlin looked around desperately, at Carolina, at Liana, at Amina, at the 200 people staring at him with judgment in their eyes. For a moment, it looked like he might speak. Argue. Invent one last lie. Then he turned and walked out through a side door. No one stopped him. The wedding, of course, did not happen. Instead, something unexpected did. Liana and Carolina sat side by side on the front pew, quietly talking while guests left, offering awkward condolences and murmured words of support. Armin stood guard at the door, refusing entry to anyone who might cause more trouble. Evelina brought them tea from the banquet hall, hot, strong, the way it is drunk in Russia, with lemon and sugar. Asia, Carolina's young cousin, sat on the floor beside them, scrolling through photos of Elvina on Liana's phone. She had stopped sneaking champagne. She was too busy asking about the child, what she liked to eat, what games she played, and whether she had a favorite toy. She has a stuffed rabbit, Liana said with a faint smile. Old and worn out. She doesn't fall asleep without it. My cousin Alan had one like that, Asia said. A teddy bear. He carried it everywhere until he was 6. Zarifa Sarkisian sat on the other side of Carolina, holding her hand. She had stopped crying. Now she just looked angry, a quiet, burning anger that lingers for years. That man, she muttered. That lying, disgusting, worthless man. If I ever see him again. You won't, Evelina interrupted. He will leave Ekaterinburg. He has no choice. His reputation is destroyed. What happens now? Liana asked. Now? Carolina looked toward the altar, where flowers still stood waiting for a ceremony that would never come. Now we get you a better lawyer. Evelina can help. And we make sure he pays for what he did, to you, to Elvina, and to all of us. Carolina shook her head. He didn't marry me. That's already something. He would have, Liana said quietly, if I hadn't come. Then thank God you did. Liana's eyes filled again. I was so afraid. I thought you would hate me. That I would call security and have you thrown out? I should have. The old me would have. Carolina took her hand. But the old me was blind. You opened my eyes. They sat together as the cathedral slowly emptied. 2 women bound by the lies of the same man, finding something like friendship among the ruins. 6 months later, the Central District Court on Lenin Avenue buzzed with the usual Monday crowd: divorces, custody disputes, property divisions. The building was Soviet-era, gray and imposing, with flickering fluorescent lights and the smell of old paper. Carolina sat in the hallway next to Liana, waiting. Elvina played at their feet. She was now 2 years old, a miniature copy of her mother, with Nerlin's dark eyes. She never asked about her father. She didn't know what she was missing. The past 6 months had been brutal: testimonies, hearings, endless meetings. Evelina led the case alongside the fraud prosecutor. The evidence was undeniable: marriage certificates, witness statements, bank records, Amina's testimony. Nerlin fought at first. He hired an expensive lawyer, claimed Liana was lying and Amina was vengeful. Then investigators found his second passport. The case collapsed. 3 months ago, Judge Volkova delivered her ruling on all counts: bigamy, fraud, family abandonment, and failure to pay child support. Mr. Mirzayan, she said through her glasses on a chain, you have demonstrated a pattern of deception of remarkable scale. You lied to all of them. You used all of them. This court finds you guilty on all counts. He was ordered to pay overdue child support, damages, and legal fees. His business partnerships collapsed. His career was over. The last anyone heard, he had moved to Moscow, starting from scratch. Carolina didn't care where he was. She only cared that he was gone. Carolina Stepanyan. Liana Mirzayan. A court officer appeared. They stood. Carolina picked Elvina up in her arms. Together, the 3 of them entered the courtroom. That evening, they celebrated in Tbilisi, a Georgian restaurant on Malyshevo Street. Checkered tablecloths, photos of the Caucasus, the smell of khachapuri in the air. Armin sipped red wine. Evelina laughed at Asia's jokes. Zarifa brought Medovik made from Elena's recipe. Liana sat at the head of the table. Elvina slept on her lap, more relaxed than Carolina had ever seen her. Amina was there too. She had stayed in Ekaterinburg and found a new job. She and Carolina were not friends, but something closer, survivors of the same betrayal. They ordered everything: khinkali, khachapuri, shashlik, pickles, fresh herbs, bread enough for an army. To new beginnings, Armin raised his glass. To new beginnings. Asia nudged Liana. What's next for you? I'm moving back into my parents' apartment in Akademikoski. Time to stand on my own feet again. She looked at Carolina. She got me a job. Assistant marketing manager at her company. I start Monday. She's brilliant, Carolina said. Liana blushed. Carolina raised her glass again. To sisters. To sisters, they echoed. Evelina leaned in. Technically, you're not sisters. After everything, you can say they are, someone replied. Better than sisters, Liana said quietly. Chosen sisters. Outside, Ekaterinburg sparkled. The Iset River flowed dark below. Snow began to fall, the first real snow of the season, soft and white, covering the streets. Somewhere out there, Nerlin was also starting over. No one at the table thought about him. They had each other. They had survived. In a city where winter lasts half the year, that was enough. The bridesmaid Carolina never invited had saved her life. She would be grateful forever. Thank you for listening. If this story touched you, please like, share with your loved ones, and subscribe to my channel.